All right, you guys, today we've got a real treat for you. We actually have a real live person to work on, not just the practice hand. So thank you to Kira for being our wonderful model today. So what I'm going to show you is how to do a fill with the fiber gel. We've gotten a lot of questions about this, so I'm going to take you through kind of a step-by-step as to how you would maintain and fill the fiber gel nails. So what she has on right now is just the full coverage tips applied with the fiber gel. And I believe she used the natural colored fiber gel, our original. So that's what she's got underneath. She's got some gel polish and a glitter press over the top of those. So I'm going to take that off. We're going to do that prep and fill, and we'll get you going here. So I'm always going to start with pushing back the cuticles. So this is why I really love having a live model, because when you're pushing cuticles back on those trainer hands, it really doesn't show much. But as you're working on the real person, when you push that cuticle back, you're going to start to see all of that white kind of flaky protein growth. And that's really what we're concerned about. So we want to make sure that we're getting that cuticle pushed back so that we're actually exposing that protein growth. Okay, so again, I'm using kind of that rounded end to push back. And then if you need to, if you feel like there's a little bit of that kind of protein growth stuck on the nail, you can use that pointy edge to really kind of loosen that up a little bit more for you. So I'm going to use my coarse safety bit, and I'm going to go through and just start to remove some of that product that's on her nail. I'm going to be working at about 12 to 13,000 RPMs. I'm going to grab my dust extractor. When I'm working with removing gel polish or hard gels, I do like to use, and acrylics too, but for sure when you're working with your gels, I like to use that dust extractor to make sure that I'm not breathing in that dust as I'm filing off. So we're going to go through, and I'm going to remove a little bit of that gel polish that's on there. I don't have to worry about removing all of the gel polish all the way through the nail. I'm just going to remove through the area that I'm working on. This is going to help as kind of a speed technique, because as you're working in salon, you want to cut your speed where you can. And if I don't go through and remove all of that gel polish right now, I am going to do some shaping at the end, and that's where I can really take off a little bit more of that. So I'm going to take off about halfway down the nail. Also, if I need to shorten the nails, I could do that at this time too, or you can wait until the end. But since I've already got my safety bit here, I'm going to just go through, shorten that up a little bit for her. And then we'll go on to our next nail here. And you can see as I'm working, I'm kind of feathering, kind of like when we're doing our prep work. I'm just feathering over that product. I'm going to change out my bits. I'm going to come in with my Mandrel and a brand new sanding band. We're going to just come right around that cuticle, remove the shine. Now on this one, I see there's just a tiny little edge of lifting. See, there's just that little minute, kind of a flaky little piece right there. I'm just going to go through and again kind of feather over that, and that's going to help to remove that little bit of a lift. Now if you do have a lot more lifting than that, which you shouldn't, but if you do, I would go back to the carbide bit, the safety bit, and take down that product a little bit more, and then you can again come through and feather through that product. Okay. Same thing on our second finger. We're going to just go through, remove that shine. Now when I'm removing shine from the natural nail, any last little bits of that gel polish that were around the edge are going to come off in this motion too. Again, using that feathering motion is going to work really good. Okay. Turn that off. Now something else that I like to do is when I'm working on a client, if they've got kind of a tougher cuticle, I like to switch out to my diamond square cuticle bit, and I'm going to go on about 4,000 RPMs, and I really like to use this right up around that cuticle area. That's going to get right in there, and any last little bits of cuticle, again, if they're maybe a nail biter or just somebody that's got a little tougher cuticle, maybe they haven't been using their cuticle oil, I like to use this bit to get right up in there. So at this point, I'm just going to go through, dust her nails off. I'm going to go in with a little bit of our swipe. I like to put that on my brush and really give that nail a good scrub. We're going to go in with a coat of our protein bond. Now I'm going to put this from cuticle about halfway up the nail, just because I like to have that little bit of an extra bond over that full coverage tip, over that plastic. So I tend to start just a little ways away and then push back to that cuticle and then pull forward. This way, again, I'm not flooding that product onto her nail and into that cuticle area. So I'm gonna use our fiber gel in the pot today. So I'm gonna start by picking up just a little bit, and I like to give myself just a little bit of a base layer. It's almost like when you're doing your full set of a Synergy hard gel, you're gonna apply that base layer and kind of build that foundation. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm just giving myself a foundation to work on top of, and I'm not blending that product all the way down the nail. I'm just coating that cuticle area, that regrowth area, and then again onto the rest of that nail. Okay, we'll go ahead into the light and we'll freeze that in there for a minimum of 30 seconds. Okay, so that first coat is cured. This point is where I'm going to actually fill in that cuticle area. So I'm going to pick up a little bit of a pearl on the end of my brush. I'm just going to kind of pillow that up into my cuticle area and that regrowth area, working that towards the cuticle and just basically filling in that regrowth. And then again, I'm going to kind of feather that out into the nail. Now on these nails, we're just doing a quick 2-week fill. If you were doing more of a rebalance, that's going to be a little bit more product and you're going to need to work a little bit more into the arch of the nail. But again, because this is just a quick 2-week fill, all we're going to do is just pillow that right into our cuticle area, and then I kind of feather it back out. And if I keep her fingers angled downward, that's actually going to help. So I'm actually going to have her keep her fingers down, pointed straight down. Okay, so at this point, we've only cured them for 30 seconds. Now, to finish that, you would actually cure it for a full 60, but I just wanted to come back and check and make sure. So I'm going to kind of look from the sides, make sure that I've got that cuticle area built up enough and that I've got enough product. Okay, so you can see again, I've got enough product from my cuticle up into my arch. I really don't need to build much thickness. I know it looks like it dips down right there, but I'm going to thin this area out so that it all starts to kind of blend together. So I'm going to finish curing this for the rest of the full 60 seconds. So we're going to go in for another quick 30, and then we'll do our filing and finishing. Okay, so our nails are fully cured for that full 60 seconds. I'm going to use a little bit of our swipe and clean off that tacky surface. And then we'll go ahead and file and finish these. So I'm going to again bring my dust extractor back. I'm going to come back to my safety bit course. Now there's not going to be a lot of filing on this, but I usually start with my safety bit just to kind of take down any little bit of bulk that there may be. I'm going to come back in at about 13,000 RPMs. I'm going to work up around my cuticle area, work in that cuticle area, and then I'm going to look from the side of the nail, and then again I'm going to work through the arch of the nail. Now again, I don't have a lot of work to do right through here. I'm just going to come through, remove the rest of that gel polish that may be there, and then get that arch to just flow from cuticle through the arch to the free edge. And then I'm going to pull forward, just checking my shape. I'm looking straight down the barrel of that nail, making sure everything is nice and even. And again, I come back to the side one more time just to really check that shape, check that arch. And I see I've got just a little bit more of that gel polish on there, so I'm going to just kind of feather through that free edge, even that out, and remove the rest of that last little bit of gel polish.
How much would you charge for this service?
How much would you charge for this service? That is a great question. Okay, this is a fill. How much do you charge for a fill? Okay, you're going to charge the same for your fills as you would for an acrylic, as you would for a hard gel. A fill is a fill is a fill. Okay, so just because it's a quick and easy service doesn't mean you should charge any less. You are still doing that maintenance fill. Okay, at this point, what I want to do is I'm going to switch back to my sanding band. Okay, now the reason for this is kind of an optional step, but I really like to do this right up around the cuticle area. I'm going to turn my speed back down to about 4,000 or 5,000 RPMs, and I'm going to come right up around that cuticle area, just to make sure that that product is really nice and tapered. Because with that safety bit, you can't always get right up into that cuticle area because that kind of rounded top bumps into that cuticle sometimes. So I like to go in with my sanding band and really make sure that that's nice and tapered around the cuticle and around the sidewalls. And then a lot of times I'll even flow through even more just to really refine that nail. So the more filing I can do with my hand or with my electric file, the less I'm going to do with my hand file, which is going to be easier on my body. Okay, so I'm going to go in with a 150 grit file. Okay, so I'm going to file this just like we would any other enhancement. I'm going to straighten out my sidewalls, come in and clean up my shape. And again, as I'm doing my sidewalls, I want to make sure that my file is straight in line with her finger. Not necessarily the nail, because if you put the nail on crooked or if their nail goes a little bit crooked, you want to keep that file straight in line with their finger so that you can keep that nail looking nice and straight. Okay? I also want to make sure that all I see of my file is that blue line down the center when I'm working on my sidewalls. If I start to see any of that gray file, that means that I've actually angled my file too much and I can start to cut in and create notches in those corners. So make sure that you're always keeping that file straight in line with the finger, straight up and down. And you can also see on a longer nail, I counterbalance. So when I'm filing on this side, I'm putting pressure with my file. I also take my other finger, put counter pressure on the other side so that it's not, wobbling back and forth. If it's wobbling back and forth, you're probably not going to get a really good straight shape, and it's also going to put pressure on her nail bed. So kind of keep that finger on there, keep it balanced, and we'll come in and clean up her shape. Same thing on the other side. I use my thumb on the other side. All right, I'm going to check my lower arches. Now, because this is just a quick 2-week fill, there's probably not a whole lot of work to do in that lower arch. It probably hasn't grown out really enough to where there's any of that nail kind of growing downward. So those lower arches are probably going to be just fine. I'm going to come right up through that cuticle area. Again, because I used that sanding band around that cuticle, I probably don't have a lot of work to do. But again, I just like to make sure I get that cleaned up and everything blended well together. I'm going to look from kind of the side and then down the barrel of the nail. And I'm just going to check all angles as I'm filing. Okay, so we got our first nail done. I'm going to go and repeat those steps on our second nail. All right, and finally what I like to do is turn that nail around so that I can see from what she's seeing. So when she looks at her nails, she's probably going to be looking at them like this. Okay, so I want to make sure to turn that hand around so that I can see exactly what she's going to see. I'm always going to have her put all of her fingers straight up. So this way I can see, are all of these nails nice and straight, or is there one that kind of curves off to the side? Okay, they look pretty straight, but again, I'm gonna just check and make sure. So we're gonna take a look here. Everything looks good. I'm gonna check my shaping on these because every now and then something's just slightly off. We all have a dominant side, so sometimes one side will be a little bit more filed than the other. So we want to correct that, and then I'm going to look backwards down the barrel. So I'm going to look backwards down the barrel, and I'm going to file from this direction and kind of flow all the way through the curve of the nail. So I'm going from one side all the way through the curve to the other side, and really making sure that everything is nice and even. So this was just a really quick fill on a set of full coverage tips applied with fiber gel. So hopefully seeing these steps is going to make your maintenance process easier and a little bit smoother. All right, so after filling with the fiber gel, I went through and finished her nails using our ManiQ Color Horizon and then one of our chrome powders over the top for the finished look. If you guys need any more information on the chrome application, we do have a great video on tips and tricks to applying your chrome as well.
Subscribe to the channel